Yeah, I wanted to explore that a little bit. Who he was as a person at that time, and how does it feel right now hearing those words come back to you?
Spot on. I mean, really, like, it's fun hearing that because I don't remember. Obviously, that came from me because that is describing him to a T.
How did that process feel in that letting go when your kid goes off to college?
Yeah. It's the worst.
Yeah. Greg McCollum. He's the director of business relations at the Orange County School of the Arts, one of the most inspiring schools I know. It's a place where, in Greg's words, the kids are living their passions and living their dreams. Greg is also a Test Prep Guru's client. In our conversation, we talk about his kids and raising his children to be passionate, resilient in the face of challenges. If you have a son or daughter applying to college in the next 5 years, I think you'll find Greg's insights inspiring and helpful.
I've never been to a school where there's so many smiles. Just remarkable to see 98% of our students are accepted into colleges. You know, how they develop and shape into these just remarkable humans is pretty exciting. That part just brings me a lot of joy. I don't care if you make straight A's in college. When you get to college, I want you to...
Greg, welcome to the show. Lovely to see you. So how'd you find Test Prep Gurus originally?
Well, I have a dear friend. You know, it takes a village to raise kids. And my kids started out at St. Mary's School. It's a pre-K through 8th grade. And it's down South County, Aliso Viejo. Several of my friends down there, call one out in particular that you know and love well, Linda Wenzinger.
Absolutely.
She raved about Test Prep Gurus. She said that for her daughter, who was very similar to my son in her learning styles, her daughter really benefited from Test Prep Gurus, and she felt like that there was a significant jump in not only the pre-college exams, SAT, ACT, that type of thing, but in general. And so when she described Test Prep Gurus and the benefits that she reaped through her family, I think all three of her daughters have gone through. So Lucas, my son, I signed him up and saw great outcomes.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Lucas. At that time, it was going 21 going into 22, there were a lot of moving parts at that time with test optional was still a big movement at the time. We've moved back to a lot of colleges going back to requiring scores now. More challenging situation. And what were the factors you were looking at when you were making this decision for him?
Well, being my firstborn and, trying to find our path and college was on the horizon. He definitely wanted to pursue post-high school degree. Lucas has a different learning style. He has ADHD, is an intelligent human, but definitely had test anxiety. Mm-hmm. He had a 504 at school and junior high and into high school, and actually carried that on into college. And through his 504, we found that if he, was secluded, took tests by himself, that he was much more successful. And what I found once he started taking the courses through Test Prep Gurus was it benefited him not only to increase his scores for those pre-entrance exams, but it also helped him kind of in life, in a sense, thinking through situations and minimizing, what are the possibilities and what are the things that, narrowing down the right and the wrong answers. And so what we saw was applicability in just his general test taking jumped. That's, his academics overall jumped significantly. And I want to say that we started with Lucas, with my son, about the same time we started, which was fall of junior year, and preparing, and maybe even summer of junior year. As we all know, junior year is the make or break, really tough if you're going to, get grades up and get your kids in a position where they have the most success in their applications for colleges. Once we started with Test Prep Gurus, we just saw him really advance in not only his scores with his college prep tests, but his overall scores as well.
I wanted to read to you some of the notes about Lucas when he first came in with your intake interview where we were trying to pair him up with the right instructor. We had Lucas is a passionate dancer and hopes to study dance in college as well. He would like to own a dance studio one day. He's expressed interest in going to school in London, but is looking at a variety of schools in the U.S. with dance programs as well. Lucas is extremely calm and empathetic towards others, loves working with kids. He has a sweet disposition and works best with instructors who can uplift him and provide positive reinforcement. Some of his worst experiences in school have been with teachers who are overly sarcastic, quickly dismissive, or short with him. He falls apart when shamed, so it will be important for him to build rapport with his instructors and to see them as his cheerleaders. And yeah, I wanted to explore that a little bit, who he was as a person at that time, and how does it feel right now hearing those words come back to you?
Spot on. I mean, really, like, it's fun hearing that, because I don't remember. Obviously, that came from me, because that is describing him to a T. He is all that. I mean, he's very sensitive and sweet. You know, when he took swim lessons, for example, when he was a small boy, most success with instructors that were, you know, like, you got this, come on. Whereas there was one instructor, I just had to pull him, because she was just, and I think that's where the sarcastic, she was always very sarcastic with him. And he just crumbled. He was just like, why? Because he took it very literal at his young age and his vulnerable age. You know, fast forward, he did pursue a degree in dance. He got a full ride to Utah Valley University out of Orange County School of the Arts from their ballroom dance program, and was asked, not only did he get a full ride to be in the program, their dance EFA program, but they also offered him a spot on their competitive dance team. He was on the competitive dance team at OCSA. He submitted a video of his performances, and as it's like making varsity in the dance world to be asked to be on their dance team, because they travel the world with this dance team and compete. There were only 2 freshmen asked to be on the dance team. So it was quite an amazing opportunity for him coming right out of high school into that environment.
Yeah, well, and we love the Orange County School of the Arts here at Test Prep Gurus. Such a unique and amazing school. I have a son who will be looking at it in the next couple of years. He's a little storyteller, a little filmmaker. Oh, yeah.
And we have a great program for that.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. What was the journey like for Lucas then when he gets that score, he had the grades, and then he gets this full ride based on his talent and drive as a dancer? And how do things go when he arrives?
When he gets into Utah?
Yeah.
He got on the dance team. It was hard for him. He reported back like, oh my gosh, these are all professional dancers. Like, I don't know why they asked me to be on the team. And the more I had conversations with him and then talking to peers back home, I learned that there's a term that he was experiencing that I'd never heard before, and that's impostor syndrome. And it's so descriptive, right?
It is.
Impostor syndrome. He felt like, why me? Why did they ask me to be on team? Because these are really hard routines. Have done dance my entire life, and these are the choreography. The entire team already knows it. I'm having to learn it from the start. And why would they ask me to be on the team? He just kept coming back with that. And I said, because you're good, because you are a professional. They saw that in you. When you submitted your videos, they saw what you're capable of. And yes, it's going to be an uphill battle a little bit, because they all know the routine. They've been doing it for years. You're coming in fresh. Yeah. So it was mostly upperclassmen. So like I said, it's like making the varsity team in sports. If you imagine a walk-on varsity player right out of high school, quite an honor for him.
Right. When you shared a story when you arrived here off air about Pedro Pascal, and I thought that was really illuminating when it comes to this idea of imposter syndrome. And if you would just recount that for everyone.
Oh, sure. So I was telling you, I was sharing the story of at the Orange County School of the Arts, we have a lot of really successful alumni that become celebrity, as well as not celebrity, but very successful in life. And one of our most illuminated alum is Pedro Pascal. I think he graduated in like 1988, 1989, when we were at the Los Alamitos High School. And anyways, he came for a master artist class and spoke to our students. One of the takeaways for me, because I sat in on it and just was amazed to how humble he was and how real he was in talking with our students. And he just shared a story about, look, I'm going to be in a movie. Nobody's recording this, right? You know, he was like, this isn't public yet, but there's a movie coming out and it's with Denzel Washington. And I'm just Pedro Pascal, and they're putting me up next to Denzel Washington. Like, he's my hero. Like, he's like everything. Like, how am I going to be able to be at his level?
Right.
And he said, I got butterflies. I was sick at my stomach. I felt faint. Just all the things that you feel when you're faced with a situation that you're not comfortable with. It was a really cool telling of, look, I'm at the top of my game. Arguably, I'm a Mandalorian. Yeah. I'm Gladiator. I'm in one of the Marvel comics. I'm in all the things. I'm doing a lot right now with my career, and I still get it.
Yeah,
it still happens to me. So it's a real thing that's out there, and people that imagine that it happens to people in the courtroom, in the performing surgery, wherever they find themselves, like, oh, on stage, here's my shot. There's a lot of pressure with that.
I found it interesting with imposter syndrome in talking to a number of high achieving people in a variety of fields. That imposter syndrome, many of them figure out a way to channel it in a positive way. Well, they will, and I don't know if Pedro did this or not, but I don't feel like I belong. I'm struggling with that. I better do extra work to make sure I really show what I've got in this moment. And I just thought that might be a nice tool for anybody that's suffering from it, because so many people do, and hardly anyone talks about it, especially those high achievers, because they feel like it's like a dirty secret.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that's why it was so powerful for Pedro Pascal to talk about it. Like, wow, this even happens to somebody like him. Right. How amazing that he leveled the playing field with all those students that are entering potentially that profession. Yeah. In acting and performative arts.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me want to talk to Lucas again and go, hey, your ACT score went up 13 points. And I know from seeing thousands of kids go through this in the last 20 years, there is no way for a teacher or the two teachers that he worked with, the whole team here. We can't do that for anyone. It's not like we have some secret strategies that no one knows about, and you're just paying us to tell him what those are, and then suddenly his score will go up. That can only be achieved with hard work, putting in the time and energy to figure out which strategies are working for you and which ones we need to discard. If he's capable of doing that, especially in this arena that he wasn't naturally gifted at to begin with, let alone one like dance where he is naturally gifted at, and he's just building on that. He doesn't need to feel imposter syndrome in any arena. I mean,
and we can all say that.
Yeah.
But it's from within. He's got to feel it. He's got to believe it.
Yeah.
He's got to overcome it. That's something. And that was hard for me as a parent, watching him struggle from afar.
Right.
I couldn't be there to talk to his teachers and say, hey, let's come up with a strategy here to kind of help him overcome this. All I could do was encourage him to talk to them, encourage him to talk to counselors there, provide whatever support from afar that I could, and, help support him that way.
How did that process feel in that letting go when your kid goes off to college?
Yeah. It's the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's my firstborn. I'm so much different. Well, my two kids are so different.
Right.
Already, but he's like my baby, I right or wrong, and probably more wrong than right. Just probably coddled him too much. And, there was a lot of scaffolding around that kid. So, to get him where he was successful as a dancer, and getting him successful in that program in Utah.
It was all net positive in the end. And a home filled with loving, caring adults is occasionally there's going to be, okay, we coddled a little too much, but I mean, on the whole, that will propel him forward.
Yeah. He's got that safety net behind him.
Yeah. My daughter is going to be a junior in high school next year. And man, it is just the thought of her leaving and being on her own, and then becoming adults, and they don't need you anymore. It's what you want. It's what the whole relationship is all about. But it's not easy, that transition.
No. For some reason, like with my daughter, she's so solid. She's so strong and independent. And I just feel like I'm going to miss her.
Right.
Of course I'm going to miss her, but I don't have that is she going to be okay? It's hard to decipher. Is that because he's my firstborn? And,
right.
I did so much as, trying to be the perfect parent to tend to everything that he needed to make sure that he was as successful in life as possible. Whereas, with her, I feel like she's just been so much more independent and just through life has not needed quite as much. And again, their learning styles are so incredibly different.
Right. Well, and there are all kinds of paths and journeys where everybody's getting where they will eventually end up. And now let's turn to your daughter for a second. Kate. So Kate just recently worked with us. Let's talk about Kate's story and beyond just the test, but I mean her whole story of where she came from and where she's hoping to go in the future.
Well, so I don't know if I shared with you, but both kids are adopted. My husband, Jeff, and I adopted both kids at birth, and we were very blessed to be able to do that. And that's a whole nother topic that we could get into for sure. Having them both at birth, just from that point on, has been just the most rewarding experience for us. And watching them develop into the unique humans that they are, it's beautiful. Kate in particular, let's see. So her nickname is Monkey. She was called Monkey for a reason because she climbed on everything. I seriously looked to see if there were crib tops that you could get to basically create a cage because I couldn't contain her. She crawled out as an infant, and I'm like, you are such a monkey. And so immediately I put her in gymnastics, and that kid was spectacular. She became a competitive gymnast. I thought for sure she was going to be at UCLA on a full scholarship as a competitive gymnast because everything she does really well. And her ability in the gym was just phenomenal. She was scoring 9s consistently, 9s plus. It was occasionally she'd dip below a 9, but I mean, that's a 10's a perfect score.
Right.
If you're in the 9s in any routine, you're doing really well. So she made it to level 6. She came to me in 6th grade and said, "Dad, I'm tired. My body's tired. I've been doing this." She was then training about 24 hours a week in the gym and competing on a team, and just broke my heart because I just saw her as, this is just you. This has always been you, and you're so good at it. And I just saw her as just continuing on. But at 6th grade, when she came to me and just said, "I really want to go to OCSA. I want, Lucas goes to OCSA. I want to go to OCSA. I want to have a life outside the gym. I see what this trajectory is. Everything's going to be gymnastics 24/7. And I just don't know that. I think I want a more well-rounded, very mature of a 6th grader to come to me and say that. Broke my heart, but still, as a loving parent, I'm like, well, I want you to do what what your heart tells you to do. And if that's something that you want to pursue, then absolutely let's redirect. So I said, but you do have an obligation to your team. The season doesn't end till, the summer. So once we get to summer, then we can have the conversation again once we get through all your competitions for the year, because they're kind of like on a school year.
Right.
And so once we get through, then we'll have a conversation again, hoping that she would continue to have wins and change her mind and go, yeah, that was just a phase. I'm loving this. I'm going to stick with it.
Right.
So we got to to summer and the end of her season. And she's like, remember, we were going to have this talk. And I'm like, yeah, we're still going to have that talk. Okay. I guess we're going to have that talk. And we did. And she pivoted and started really pursuing, acting monologues. And really, she's just so confident in everything she does that she, auditioned for the acting conservatory at OCSA, got in, and she's done really well for herself. She's now on mock trial. OCSA's mock trial was number 2 in the region. They were just narrowly beat out by a local Orange County high school that went on to state. So we're hoping next year it's going to be us.
Nice.
She's looking forward to being on mock trial again. And mock trial has really opened up a door for her where she's thinking she might want to go into law.
I just was reading an interesting story that reminds me of your daughter. So Vera Wang, the iconic fashion designer. So she was an Olympic, or not an Olympic. She was a figure skater.
I saw that.
Highly competitive, didn't quite make the Olympics. Then that ends. Devastated and lost for a few years, and bounces around between a few different occupations and is in and out of fashion in one way or another, but not in a high level capacity at all. And it's when she's in her 40s.
47. I read this article.
Yeah. That she designs her own wedding dress because she can't find one that's exactly how she wants it to be. And later when they interviewed her about how once she becomes the Vera Wang and is a huge success, they said, tell us about your process. And she said, there's something about all those years I spent in figure skating that when I look at a piece of clothing or think about how it's going to be designed, I think about the movement of that clothing and how someone would move in it. And I think that's a unique perspective. I was really blown away by this, that she was connecting all this work from this figure skating for so long, because you never know how all these dots are going to connect in the future, especially when you dive deep into the things you're in. And I think a lot of people naturally feel a little heartbreak when their kid wants to stop doing something that they show talent and enthusiasm for. And yet that doesn't necessarily have to be, it's not wasted time. It can add color and perspective in a whole other field down the line in really incredible ways.
I think that's a really good example to bring up, because I read the article too. And I was just like, oh, yay. Because Lucas now has taken a pause on dance.
Right.
He's stepped away from the dance team at Utah Valley. He's still enrolled there. But he's like, I've been dancing kind of the same story as my daughter, been dancing my whole life. This is all I know. I'd really like to just kind of step back from it. He was teaching at Arthur Murray, I believe just down the road here from your offices.
Right.
And was working with not only children, but adults, like people wanting to do their wedding dance and things like that. And he's like, wow, this is what it's going to be like if I own my own dance studio. You mentioned, my comments early on,
right?
Because that was always kind of his trajectory. His goal was to one day have his own, work for a dance studio, but then peel off and do his own. And I think that that's still kind of floating out there. I don't think that dream is dead by any means, but he is definitely, now that he's 21, he just turned 21 a few weeks ago, he's taken a step back and he's like, I want to see what else is out there, because all I've known really is dance. And I just want to see kind of like, potentially another path.
Right.
And reading that article about, okay, because as a parent, you're 21, like, you're on insurance till 26. Like, what is your play? Like, what are we doing here?
Right.
Always trying to keep the guardrails up. That's my, my MO. Then, when I saw that, I was like, okay, I need to relax, because look at this highly successful, highly known fashion designer.
Right.
And what she was capable of doing at a later stage in her career.
Well, I am a huge proponent of this idea of running little life experiments. And I think we're kind of touching on that with Lucas, where you may have an idea of what it would be like to own a dance studio or whatever that thing is. And the example that's coming to mind is we had several students recently who were interested in veterinary sciences. I said, well, that's wonderful. And they told very similar stories, right? I love dogs, but I love all animals and spending time with them. And we suggested to both students, because they were coming into, one was coming into junior year, one's coming into senior year. I said, hey, is there somewhere we can run an experiment to just verify your inclination here towards this field of study? Because it's a big investment. And we've just found running these experiments, no matter what the feedback is, it's all useful. And it was a really great example because they both go volunteer, one at a animal shelter, one at an animal hospital. And they came back with very different impressions of what it was. The one student said, I realized that working in an animal hospital, she's like, it's not just playing with animals. They're all sick. That's why they're there. And I spent more than half my time with their owners rather than the actual animals themselves. And I really did not enjoy that part of the process at all. And she was downtrodden, upset about this, feeling a little lost. But as we discussed, they said, hey, if we're just looking at this as data back from an experiment, this is useful data because you didn't spend 10 years in college and graduate school to earn a degree only to go figure this out down the line. And it doesn't mean that this love of animals won't factor into your life in however we can imagine that might.
Our nation, sure.
Right. Whereas the other student said, it was even better than I had expected, and for different reasons, but loved those other aspects to it. And so it was, and
it's interesting, a comparison to that is Lucas working at the dance studio over the last couple of years. And he said, what they don't teach you in dance, if you're going to be an instructor, is the psychology, the counseling aspect of it. Some of these people that pay for dance lessons, they pay a pretty penny for these dance lessons. I mean, it's like over $100 an hour for these dance lessons. And he was really intrigued by the fact that they didn't really want to be there to improve their dancing. They just wanted to use that time. It's physical, it's entertaining, and they liked him, and they wanted to talk to him and just offload.
Right.
And he's like, are we here to dance? Or are we here to you tell me all the problems that you have in your life?
Right.
And that was as a young, 19, 20-year-old, right. He was trying to process, why are these people telling me things that maybe they should be telling a therapist?
Right.
And I said, well, that's interesting. I mean, trainers, workout trainers, bodybuilding training or whatever type of Pilates. Yeah. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of, that you're having a close connection to somebody, and there's that trust and, offloading or downloading of sort of intimate details of your life. I think he just wasn't prepared for that and was more interested in we're here to improve your dance. Can we just focus back on that?
Sure.
So that was an interesting finding of his. He's like, I don't really, like that part of it as much. I want to make people better dancers is really all I'm about. And he's a purist that way. He's really hard on himself to be a better dancer, which is how he got to where he is.
Right.
He's a perfectionist in that world. And so he expects that everybody's that way too.
Well, and that's a really interesting, unique experience that could inform the type of studio he wants to start instead of just a dance studio. Says, okay, I'm going to try to send a message out with this dance studio that we're looking for people that really want to push themselves, that want to be competitive in this space, and that it's not somebody like me that just came in for a few weeks to learn a dance for my wedding, which is something I did when I got married. I didn't have too many therapy sessions while I was there, but it's very different than someone that wants to come in and wants to get every detail right and take that pursuit to the next level.
Sure.
Now, your daughter, so she may become an actor, maybe move into law. We
are all over the map.
Okay.
So I just have been working with somebody that has helped us kind of think that through as far as getting our thoughts together on what colleges does she want to narrow her list of pursue and apply to. Acting, yes, she loves it. She's good at it. Her concern is, if I don't make it in acting, I have a lifestyle that I'd like to maintain. And, I don't know that I would be able to do that as an actress, unless I, made it big really fast, but I do have a passion for it. So I would like to study it further. And I said, well, you can double major, you can study acting. And by the way, acting is a really good field to study because it sets you up in so many professions. Law, I mean, if she wanted to pursue law, which she's starting to express interest in, interestingly to me, so one of my passions is the environment. I worked for a number of years at a nonprofit conservation organization, the Nature Conservancy. So I'm very passionate about the environment, and to see her kind of pick up that thread, she's very environmentally conscious and aware. She went last summer. She did a Oxford Royale program, study abroad program on the Oxford campus. Yeah, where it was all about climate.
Beautiful, amazing place to go study. I mean,
2 weeks there, and she had the time of her life. Climate, environment, and immigration were the topics that they brought in children from students at her age group, 14 to 16, from all over the world.
Yeah.
Talk about what are what's your perspective on these really hot topics worldwide, global topics. So I think that kind of like sparked something in her to where she's like, the climate piece, she was just like environment and oceans and, like she's kind of leaning into that. So we are starting to have conversations about what are some of the schools that really, focus in that area.
Now you're reminding me of another story that maybe you'll want to share with her. I found this really interesting. So Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is a famous astrophysicist, very, very talented at explaining incredibly complex concepts with quantum mechanics to the vastness of the universe, things that most of us can't even begin to process, let alone understand the math behind all of it. And he, in an interview, talked about how he said, I think I learned a lot of the skills that helped me to communicate this by studying dance and theater. And I guess I want to say he was the captain of his dance team in college. Yeah. And a very unknown aspect of his journey, but a really critical one, because there are plenty of people, not plenty, but there are many that have the science skills that he has, but I don't know of any, except for maybe Carl Sagan a few generations ago, that had the understanding of the math and the physics and the communication skills. And it fascinates me when people find they have these disparate interests that then come together to create something special. And I really do think, as I mentioned when you first arrived and we were just chatting, a lot of these well-worn career paths just straight into law. And it's like, well, I don't know. There isn't a lot of innate interest in it. Other than I know you can make money being a lawyer. You have a relative who's done well for themselves as an attorney, whatever those.
Mom, dad.
Right.
Grandparents were all attorneys. So I kind of feel like this is my path. Or
at least they get excited when you say you're thinking about law, because they go, okay, you're going to be financially secure. And I 100%, we want our children to be financially secure. I don't think money solves all your problems, but it does solve your money problems.
It does.
And those are not to be ignored. At the same time, though, with the rise of AI, we're already seeing these low-level legal jobs are no longer necessary for the paralegals and the first year, second year that are just looking up case law to help support the lead attorney's work. ChatGPT or there are some LLMs, the large language models that are specifically for legal work. It's not that they can just do the same work as those 6 paralegals. They can do it better than they can. They can find more stuff. They never sleep. They never call in sick. And we're seeing that in medicine. We're seeing it in finance, on these typically well-worn paths that made sense, even if you weren't that into it. And it does seem that there's a shift going on where I think schools like OCSA will be at the forefront of this, where they spend a lot of time identifying and cultivating talent and enthusiasm in these different domains. And if you can find that combination where you have really unique experiences and unique knowledge by combining stuff, there will be all kinds of opportunities for these kids. But I do think it helps to get started on that path sooner rather than later to start figuring this stuff out.
Sure. Yeah. OCSA has quite the track record of, students matriculating on to just many different amazing colleges, because colleges love OCSA students. They know the rigor that the kids are put through. They know that the kids are pursuing their passions. This arts charter, the proof is in the pudding when you see the offer letters that are going out to these kids, that they like that well-rounded arts background. And not every kid that is in theater, is in musical theater or acting or dance continues into that. They can go into astrophysics or who knows what.
Right.
But computer engineering, all the things. Yeah. I mean, the colleges love that well-rounded student that comes in fully prepared to like, oh yeah, no, I've done that. I've got that kind of broad base of life experience and commitment.
Right.
That, we students are there till 10 o'clock at night if they're on a particular show, and they've got AP exams the next day, but they figure it out.
Right.
They're forced to work it all out, and colleges know that.
Well, and OCSA is special in that when a college rep visits OCSA, they have a unique experience just being on the campus. And I know that from personal experience. It's been, I believe, 8 or 9 years now that I've been working with OCSA to talk about test preparation or the college journey. But I still remember vividly the first time I stepped foot on that OCSA campus, not knowing what to expect. I mean, I knew the arts were a big deal over there, but I didn't really know what that meant. And I was looking for Becca and trying to find her office. And I remember this kid came out of the elevator and he was turned around facing his classmates, just backing out of it. And so he bumps into me, but he wasn't paying attention because he was in full costume and he was singing at the top of his lungs, rehearsing something for a, I think it was a musical that they were working on, or I imagine it was. And he said he was sorry. And I just looked around and there was just creativity was tangible, just in the air. And it's such an exciting, vibrant community that way. And I think if I'm a college rep and I come see that, I'm going, you know what? We need to give a little extra benefit of the doubt, little love to these kids coming out of here.
True. Yeah. Lucas as a dancer, stepping back to him in particular, he was an incredible athlete. He played lacrosse, he played baseball, and hand-eye coordination is mind-body control is off the charts as a dancer. And when he was accepted into OCSA, there was a just huge shift in his calmness, his personality. He's like, I found my people. He could dance. I mean, he was, in a traditional school, he was kind of a dancer and everybody knew he was a dancer, but he would not, he was a closeted dancer. Right. He just kind of kept it I dance, but let's go play lacrosse. Let's go throw the football, to fit in. And he was fine. He enjoys that to this day. He'll go shoot some hoops or whatever. When he got to OCSA and found his tribe and seeing the kids there, like you describe, I mean, there were many times in that same lobby that you're describing where the elevator is, there'll be a cappella group and they just hey, whoever happens to be there, hey, we need an audience. Can you guys listen to us for a second? Right. And it's yeah, twist my arm. I'd love to listen to you, rehearse your song that you're going to play. So you see that all over. You see kids walking around with, you mentioned that your kid is interested in film and television. Yeah. Constantly kids are walking around videotaping, acting, scenes, monologues. It doesn't matter. It's that they're on their break or their, study hours or lunchtime. They're in their mode.
Right. It's not an activity that you do when it's time to do the activity. I mean, over there, the students are living and breathing it. Right. It is part of them. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
What's it like to work there on the day to day?
A lot of fun. It's, I'm trying to think of the best, elevator speech because there's so much to it. I mean, that's a really, sort of broad question. I love it. It's, I feel like I want, it's a lottery system to get into OCSA. It's very difficult. We have 2,300 students in the Orange County location and probably 3,500 applicants each year for 500 spots are available each year. So it's a lottery-based system. And so I truly feel like, getting the opportunity to be a part of the administrative team has been me winning the lottery in a sense. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much joy and you can probably hear it in my voice when I talk about I love these kids. I mean, they are just your example where, oh, I'm sorry. And you probably could have struck up a conversation and become that kid's new best friend.
Sure.
He would have been he or she, I don't know, you didn't mention, but they could have said, oh, what are you here for? Oh, do you need help? Everybody there is just so friendly and happy to be there. And my role is director of corporate and business relations there at OCSA. Okay. And so when I bring businesses that thinking of supporting OSHA, becoming corporate sponsors. I bring them behind the walls and they're like, I've never been to a school where there's so many smiles.
Yeah.
These kids are truly living their passion, living their dream. It's just remarkable to see. And not only it's pre-professional, like, my son's an example that we've been talking about, but you look across the board. I mean, whether they're in instrumental music, whether they're in culinary and they're in there like with their, pastry, bags and they're making this beautiful presentation. They're ready to do that professionally when they graduate from high school. 98% of our students are accepted into colleges, after high school and go on to, higher learning, but they're ready if they want to just step right into their profession. They're ready to go. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. I think if there was a day-to-day behind the scenes, just Instagram channel of just the random stuff going on in the lobby and the halls, I would have to tune in for that because the energy is it's just so positive and uplifting and inspiring. Like it makes, when I visit the campus, it makes me want to work harder at the things I am passionate about. And that's pretty special.
Well, and one of the things when I mentioned culinary, a thought that occurred to me was, we're a performing arts school. We're a visual arts school. All the students are provided training on presenting themselves. Mm-hmm. So when you have a kid that's just like incredible baker, they're making these incredible pastries, they're having to present that. They're having to talk about their process, how they came up with this recipe or the recipe that they're following and what inspired them about that recipe, and then present it as if they are a chef at a famous, James Beard restaurant, award-winning restaurant, then saying to their guests, look, this is this pastry. This is how I came up with it. I hope you enjoy it. It's amazing. And our visual artists, a lot of them can be, naturally very, introverted, intricate. They're working on a beautiful masterpiece and they're asked to talk about your process. What did you use? What's the medium of this art? Is it a sculpture? Is it a drawing? Is it 2D, 3D? And tell us about it. Tell us about how you were inspired to come up with this. It's amazing to see an OSHA kid through the process, like watching them. We're 7th through 12th grade. Some of the 7th graders come in and they're just tiny little children. And you just think, oh my gosh, they're here at a high school. Like that's just like, they're just so little and vulnerable is how you feel about them. And to watch them mature through 12th grade is just, and how they develop and shape into these just remarkable humans is pretty exciting. That part just brings me a lot of joy.
Well, I am excited to see what happens with Lucas and Kate next. And I have certainly learned that it's a long journey for all of these kids, and you never know which twists and turns are ahead. But man, good things seem to happen for those kids that can dive deep into whatever it is that makes them tick. Eventually they find a way to connect all those dots. And so I'm looking forward in the years ahead to find out what Lucas and Kate are up to.
I had a really good friend of mine tell me that he told his 2 daughters, I don't care if you make straight A's in college. When you get to college, I want you to live your life, get the most out of this experience, and come out of it the most interesting person that you can possibly be, so that anybody that sits down with you is just fascinated by your stories. And I just thought that was such a cool takeaway. I want my kids to have that, where they can sit down with anybody and be comfortable talking about their life, their perspective, and leave an impression of, wow, that's an amazing person. And It's an amazing human. Life experience has been good to them, That has shaped them in a way that they're really an interesting person.
Right. Well, and diving deep will give you stories to tell. And it just so happens, I think, at this moment in time, the importance of grades, whether they're in college or in high school. I mean, in high school, they're still really important to get into these elite schools, but you have an abnormally high number of students with 4.8s, 4.9s now. And it's not what it once was. And so for me, from my perspective, it's interesting because standardized test scores have become better of predicting your performance in college than your high school GPA has for the first time ever in this industry. And mostly because of inflated GPAs, which is making those grades less important. And at first glance, I thought that's such a shame because the coursework you do in high school should be important. And yet my thinking on it is completely reversed because grades aren't a great way to capture what you really put into something, what you really learned in there, and how you would be able to apply what you learned out in life in the real world. And as grades become less important and everybody stops applying to the same top 25 colleges, and it becomes more about, okay, how do I connect these disparate dots in my life to produce something really unique? Well, you're going to have more unique pathways through college, more kids actually going, okay, I need to find the right fit school to propel me down my unique path rather than just Harvard's the best one to propel anybody and everybody down their path. And counselors have been espousing this message for 15, 20 years, but there's going to be an actual, not just to achieve fulfillment in your life, but I think market pressures to do this as well, because it's great to be a unique human that has stories and can interact with anybody. Those are the skills that will also be most useful in the workplace, I believe. So you have this change going on in college admissions, but I think it's scary to a lot of people that the old paradigm is shifting, and yet it's going to be net positive in the end for all these kids, because it sounds like a much more interesting world if you've got kids that aren't going like, okay, what grades do I need to get into this college so that there's a job waiting for me at the end, right?
That it's more of that just serpentine of finding testing, like you described earlier on, having an internship where you test and continue on, that flow chart. It's like, yes, okay, now move on to the next. It's more like that instead of just linear. I think that historically it's seemed to be a lot more like you find your path, your passion, you stick to that, and you're in that groove.
Right.
And to jump out of that groove, I think generations now are more adept at kind of moving around and finding really and it's not always like the Vera Wang story. It's, figure skating, different things. I'm trying to think the in-between. There was an in-between that she did, and it's not coming to me, but there was something that she did. I want to say it was like pursuing law. I don't know.
Yes, there was another detour in there.
Then, so like that story I just thought that was really fun to read.
Well, and I think, you mentioned the environment earlier. Like if we're as a society going to solve these big, complicated problems, we probably need more than like 8 paths to choose from, right? These are the paths. Pick the one that best fits you. We need thousands of different pathways where people can really bring those unique skills and experiences and then come together with unique skills and experiences to solve big problems.
And that's where that program that Kate did last summer in the UK was just phenomenal, because bringing people from all over the world. I mean, she was there with a guy from Greece and some gals from India, and just, like this great collection of kids and their perspectives and their upbringing, where they're dealing with some global hot topics.
Yeah.
It was really, really good for her.
Yeah. These young people today fill me with hope for the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for your time today, for the work you do at OCSA, and for raising 2 incredible kids.
Oh, thank you.
That both were a pleasure to work with.
Yeah, no, and thank you for being here for them, because both kids benefited so dramatically. I mean, Lucas in particular, his score jumped quite a bit. And again, the applicability beyond just those tests, it has helped them in more than just test taking. It's life skills. It truly is. So I appreciate that.
Always warms my heart to hear that, because that's part of our mission. That's what we're trying to do. It's not just raise a test score. Yes, we want to raise the test score. That's how we prove these strategies work to a teenager that usually needs objective evidence that growth mindset is a good thing. They don't want to just hear it. It's like, well, show me. I think the test it's the syringe through which we deliver the medicine of like, these are skills that you'll carry with you for your whole life. This is just the medium we're teaching it through. And Okay. Well, thank you, Greg.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's been my pleasure.
Yeah. Well, I hope to see you soon at OCSA when I'm back over there.
Can't wait to have you back on campus.
All right. Sounds good.